Open your ears and get stimulated. It's Mark Reardon on KMOX.
Brand new movie. It's called Black or White, starring Kevin Costner. Opens in about 10 days. It's premiering, though, in St. Louis. Special screening tonight.
I'm thinking we need to start talking about shared custody.
Not gonna happen.
She has a father.
You live in a blind spot when it comes to your son. He's a junkie.
And you're a drunk.
Okay, thank you.
Run on home, fill your bathtub with whiskey, and just soak in it. Have yourself an old drunk man's bubble bath.
Got it.
Good.
I love Octavia Spencer. Kevin Costner is with me in studio. How are you, Kevin?
I'm fine, thanks.
Great to see you. Thanks for coming to St. Louis. Now, you've been here before. I was always wondering why there was not a sequel to American Flyers, like American Flyers 2. Why did you never do that?
I don't know. Listen, that's a question that they ask me about a lot of my movies. How come I ain't no Bodyguard 3 and Bull Durham 2 and Tin Cup 3 and Dances with Wolves the early years? I have a tendency to make these movies and then move on, but I have been here, and I think I was here about a couple of years ago at Bob Costas. He raised a lot of money for charity. And
Sure.
I played music at the Fox Theater, I think.
Awesome
I don't think I
venue.
was ever in a more beautiful building. I've been in a few in Europe, but this rivals those
beautiful.
those places.
Let's talk about this film. Not only are you starring in this movie, but you're heavily invested. You put a lot of money in this movie,
I did.
your own money, right?
Yeah, I did. It was a movie that I really thought that a lot of people who make movie studios would have run to this, but it didn't turn out to be. But that's not the first time it's happened to me. I did the same thing with Dances with Wolves, and and movies like Bull Durham and Field of Dreams. These are movies that for me have really propped up my career, and yet their movies are very, very hard to make. And so Black or White was a movie that I knew was good, and I thought it was as good as Field of Dreams. I thought it was as good as Dances with Wolves, and it's in its own way dealing with race and in a really unusual way. And so, the way it's been in my career, if it has to happen, I find a way to do it, and that's what happened. So Black or White was financed by the people who made it, me.
Why do you think, and by the way, if I understand correctly, that's $9 million of your money in this movie,
Yeah.
right?
Me and my partner, my cousin, we just, I called him up. I said, hey, man, you wanted to be in a movie? It's not like I was doing him a big favor. But, no, we did. And there's a version of $9 million that's in that, Yeah.
So why in today's Hollywood, and you say this has happened before, so maybe it's not anything, do they back off of a project like this because of the topic?
Well, I think they always look at that, and listen, the fabric of studios have changed. They are making these giant movies, these cartoon movies that have sequels. That's generally where they're going. Probably 80% of their content is those kind of movies, and so, but there still exist these movies and movies in between that aren't getting made, finding their way on television now a little bit. A lot of this stuff, but I can't speak to them about their business. They know it very well. That's why they're still in business. That's why they're still really big. But for me, movies are always going to be about big things and little things and things that matter and things that make you laugh. And that's the staple of American movies. And Black or White hit on all those cylinders in some magical way.
So I'm a bit advantaged here over the audience. I've seen it. I really liked it a lot. Explain your character and what this movie's about.
Well, hard for me to always explain something. I made Dances. It was 3 hours, so doing anything quick is not that,
Right.
not that easy for me. But I play a grandfather. My daughter has had a biracial marriage, and she's lost her life. And the father did not want to have any part of the child's life, which is it happens and it happens. But in this instance, there was going to be no father around and no family to take up, and so my wife and I raised this child. The child's now 7 years old, and I lose my wife at the beginning of this movie. So now it's just me raising her, and her grandmother is black and lives in South Central.
That's Octavia Spencer.
Octavia Spencer lives in South Central, Compton specifically, and they would like to be a part of her life. And I'm really suspicious. The little girl's not sure she wants to live down there, but the little girl is very happy down there. And so what happens is, a lot of times when we make these movies about race, we have a tendency to look backwards, whether it be 12 Years a Slave, whether it's Selma, whether
Sure.
it's some kind of thing, we're looking backwards. This is a really this is a really authentic, contemporary look at where we're at in America today with race. These two people who actually do kind of get along, they go into a custody fight over her, and it's just amazing how this movie plays out. The weave that it makes is it makes you laugh. It breaks your heart into 1,000 pieces.
You could have never known, though, how relevant this film would be given what's happened in this country the past 5 months, and right here in St. Louis being the epicenter.
Well, you can say that, but what happens is I make things that are relevant to myself, and race just didn't just become a topic this month or this last August. It's been with this country a lot. It's been certainly highlighted, the things that happen in Ferguson, the things that are happening every day across this country. So this movie was relevant to me. I knew that race is we have a problem with it, and so if somebody thought this was good timing, then they should have paid for it. No, if they thought it was good timing, that has actually no consideration, because I made this movie a year and a half ago, because I felt that this is the problem. We do have a problem, and the fact that we're sitting where we're sitting right now, I do hope that people run out and see this. I hope that they sit down and really take advantage of what this movie has to say, because in the end, it's about family, it's about love, it's about these two families that can get along, that have suspicions, and it really is. It's not politically correct, but it's loving.
There's a speech, I'm not going to ruin anything, but there's a speech that you deliver in the end of the film in particular that I'm guessing, it's certainly an attention getter, but I'm guessing not everyone is going to love that speech.
Well, so far, everyone has loved it. And that's our gunfight, so to speak. I mean, we're not a movie that depends on car crashes and on fist fights. What happens, there's a lot of things that people want to say in this country, and they feel like they can't, on both sides.
Sure.
And they get said in this movie. And people are clapping. I've shown this to completely black audiences and to absolutely white audiences, and everybody goes to the exact same things. Why? Because we're not different. We understand what we're talking about, and it just has to be talked about in a really clear way, a respectful way, a loving way. And this picture takes a very, like I say, an authentic look at these two families, how they have to go at each other. It's really even-handed. But that speech is one for the books. It really is. It's one for the books. And I know when I read it the first time, it electrified me. I thought, wow, that's what I meant. That's what I would love to say. I remember loving baseball, my whole life. Understanding baseball, being around non-athletes who don't understand baseball, and blah, blah, blah. How do you explain baseball? And then it's like trying to describe chocolate, right? And then James Earl Jones gives a speech in Field of Dreams that somehow accents why it's our pastime. It's one of the most beautiful speeches you'll ever.
We play it on opening day here in St. Louis every year.
One of the most beautiful speeches that you'll ever see in cinema. And that's what great writing can do sometimes. And what happens is we talk about, we get into this court thing, and my character says, okay, here we go.
Yeah.
That where you want to go? Really? Here we go. And when I'm done, the oxygen goes out of the room, and I'm telling you that everyone claps for that speech.
That's encouraging. That's awesome to hear. So part of your trip here into St. Louis is to have and foster this dialogue. You're going to be at the screening tonight, and there's going to be a little Q&A that my colleague and I, Carol Daniel, will introduce you and MC. But you want people to talk about this movie, right?
Well, I've wanted them to talk about every movie I've made. Dances with Wolves, Field of Dreams. It's important when people talk about a movie. That's how it lives forever. Number one, if it's worth talking about. When you saw Field of Dreams, you couldn't describe that movie, but after you saw it, you basically said to your neighbor or whoever you saw the next day, you need to see this movie.
Yeah.
And that's what happens when we have great books that are written. The next day we say, I read the best book. Last night I heard think about when you heard Whitney sing I Will Always Love You.
I remember where I was the first time.
It was a song that you traded, and I think the reason I take this movie around is I do think it's worth talking about. I do think it's worth going to the theater and seeing. And so I'm taking it around the country. I've invested my money because I believe in the movie experience. That's why I make it for people. If others didn't want to make it, I don't think that it's invaluable. I don't think that it's no longer valid because a large studio doesn't want to make this movie. That's why, I fall in love with a waitress. I don't have to fall in love with a supermodel. You fall in love with what you think is beautiful. And you don't worry about the pedigree. So black or white, for me, is worth talking about because I feel close to audiences that still go to the movie. I feel close to people that want to see something other than a super cartoon, a comic
Absolutely.
book. And there's a place for those movies. I'm not trying to dog those movies, but I think that people are hungry to see themselves on screen. And I think when you see black or white, you'll become electrified.
This little girl, Jillian Estelle, she's so good in this movie. And when you work with a child actor, you really depend on them to be good, don't you?
You really have. I mean, because listen, if she's not good, we're not good.
Right.
And so you realize that, everything that you put into this movie. So we started looking at 1,000 little girls. It got down to 100. It got down to 50. The director saw all those, and 3 of them came in the door to see me. And the one thing that when you cast that little girl, 2 things are going to happen. One, two hearts are going to break. They're going to be on the ground, little girls who didn't get that part. And the other one's life is going to change. And she's really good in this movie, so you're going to like her.
Well, your peeps are telling me that you will have 5 minutes for me on the other side of the news. Are you willing to do that? Hang out just for a couple minutes. Black or white? I heard you call it black and white. Originally, the film was called Black and White, right?
Yeah, it was. And then had to just switch over for silly reasons. But now it's black or white.
Was that one of those they tested it with audience types of things, or
no,
did
it wasn't at all. It was somebody who had already had a title previous. Thought they wanted to make a movie. We asked if we could have that title. And they said, no, we want to keep it for something. So we had to move over and add that or black or white.
Well, we'll talk a little bit more about the movie. Kevin Costner with me in the studio. We'll come back after the news. Thanks again for coming in here tonight. And if you're fortunate enough to have a ticket or be on the list tonight, I think you're going to have a great time. You're really going to like the movie. We're back right after the news with Kevin Costner on KMOX.
All the world is alive in the city, and baby, you look so pretty.
That's Kevin Costner singing that song. Kevin Costner and Modern West. That's a brand new song, Alive in the City. Mm-hmm. And is it on iTunes right now?
Yeah. It's a little song about, you try to do something perfect with a woman, right? And guys always get this wrong, which is just St. Louis is any different than any place else. You get her, you take her out to this, you got this thing in mind, you go to the best hotel, they're going to have the best restaurant, she's looking really great, and all of a sudden you say something, and the next thing you know, she's crying, and you're in this complete fight, and you think, how did this perfect night get so screwed up so quick? Now, I know I'm the only guy this has ever happened
Never
to.
happened to me,
So,
Kevin.
but the song deals with this thing where you finally say to her, hey, snap out of it. Let's just put your stuff on. We're at a great place. Let's go out and have a great time. So that's what that song is.
Kevin Costner and Modern West, Alive in the City. I'm going to have to check out the whole thing. On the topic of music, so when I saw this movie about a month ago, I shot Mike Binder, the director, a message. I said, wow, great movie, loved it. And here's the question I had for him, but you're better suited for this question. I said, can I get Lily Costner to sing at my funeral?
Oh.
So your daughter,
Yes.
let me see if I get this straight, she sings in a scene in this movie, and
That's
it's
right.
absolutely beautiful. Because I had to look up the song. It's a CCR song, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
It was
is.
awesome.
Yeah. She wasn't going to be the original choice because I don't put my children into that situation. There was somebody that Mike wanted to use a different song. They wanted way too much money for our movie, and he kept trying to talk him into it. No, listen. And then all of a sudden we just said, you know what? Why don't we? He goes, can I use your daughter? And I said, I don't think you want. He goes, no, I want to. He says, number one, she's a singer-songwriter in Nashville. He goes, but number two, you figure if this guy's lost his wife, he can't make funeral arrangements. Somebody probably whispered in his ear, the little girl down the street who you guys always enjoy singing in choir on Sunday. Why don't we have her sing? And I'm sure when you lose your wife, you're just numb, and he probably just nodded his head. So in a way, it was better that this little girl is singing at this funeral, and she just lights it up.
It was beautiful. How old is she?
She's 26.
Okay, it was awesome.
She's 28. She's going to just knock me out for saying it.
Can you commit to that if I put that in my will that she will sing at my funeral?
Yeah,
Can we put
let
that
me
down
tell
on
you
paper
what,
this afternoon?
I know she's going to be holding my hand at the end. She's just a great girl.
I talked about Mike. I love his movies. He did a great movie with you called The Upside of Anger. It was on my top 10 list.
Yeah, Mike
that year.
Binder.
He's really a great director. I think he coaxed one of the better roles out of Adam Sandler in Rain on Me as well. But this seems like a project. He wrote it also?
Yeah, it's based on true events in his own life. His sister was married to his wife's sister died of AIDS at 31, and she had a biracial baby. And the idea was that at that point the father wasn't going to be involved. And so Mike and his wife helped to raise this child along with the grandparents down in South Central. The difference is there was no acrimony there. They actually got along beautifully. But Mike thought it was a great window to actually create a conversation. And so he just created this like beautiful screenplay.
Did you ever think of trying to direct this movie yourself, saying, hey, Mike, why don't you let me direct it?
I could have directed it. I would have had he not, just the same way as I would have loved for a studio to pay for it.
Right.
But I do what I have to do. So no matter what, after I read Black or White, it was going to be made. And, it mirrors my life a little bit, too. I was born in Compton, California.
Yeah, I read that somewhere. I did not know that.
Yeah. Well, it's we're all from somewhere. And my first 7 years were there. And so I understand that neighborhood a little bit. Not to the extent adult would know it, but I'm from there, and so I know the Sears, where she got all those suits.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's awesome.
I didn't realize that until I was doing a little homework that you had a connection there. Now, how do you approach a role like this from an acting perspective? We've seen you in many different roles. You're a heavy drinker in this movie. There's no, I'm assuming not method acting for this one, right?
No, it was not. Drinking wasn't a part of my thing, and it's very easy to get caught acting when you're drunk, when you're inebriated, and I worked really hard on it. So I'm very proud of this movie, the performance, the movie itself. I've said to people, I go, if something happened to me tomorrow, I wouldn't mind that this was my last movie that my children saw.
Anthony Mackie, who plays the father of your granddaughter, is very good as well.
No, Anthony plays the attorney.
He plays the attorney.
The attorney that's really formidable and really raises the stakes in this movie.
Who plays the father?
Andre Holland.
Okay, I guess I was confusing and I shouldn't have done that, but he's really good.
Yeah, he's very, very good. We really got lucky right down the road. What happened was actors read these parts and listen, the vanity of an actor is wanting to live forever. And when you make a great movie, you have a chance. And they all saw their chance to participate. Anthony Mackie, in particular, so many things that he says he really wanted to say. It feels like he's wanted to say a long time for himself and for his generation and for his culture.
Did you pick, I know you're doing a media swing for this because your money's involved, but did you pick St. Louis on the stump because of everything that's happened here or not?
No, I like coming down here. I'm not ignorant to what has been going on here, but I have tried to hit a lot of secondary markets. Our plan was to hit Minneapolis and Cleveland and Detroit, and we're going over to to Dallas and we're up to Atlanta. And so my idea was if I could have hit 10 more cities, I would. But this is I'm on my way to Dallas, and so as I drop down through, we were going to stop in Kansas City, and for whatever reason, we weren't able to do that. So. Listen, we're all St. Louis. I mean, we're all Ferguson, in Los Angeles and Detroit and everywhere. We understand what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I appreciate you coming in here. I'm going to go out with a little bit more music. I'll see you tonight.
We got to play it in its entirety. You can't just play a bit because I ain't going to let you play it then, man.
We'll play the whole. Dave, we got to play the whole thing at some point here. We're going to download the whole album and we will do that.
No, that's just an individual song. It's not on a record yet. It was just we just played it. But yeah, I mean, I'm talking to people listening on the radio right now. I'm going to sing like 20 seconds. That's not fair to me.
I'll play the rest of it right now. There's like 2 minutes
Start
left. Here
from
we
the
go.
beginning.
Kevin Costner.
From the beginning.
Well, if he wants
everybody
me to play,
knows about
he came
having
in
a
here,
bad
so
date.
I'm gonna play the whole thing because if Kevin Costner asked me to do something, I don't think I'm going to be able to get out of it. So if we get hit for any Ask After BMI fees out of this, you'll send your lawyers in, right?
I don't need a dime.
Here we go. Kevin Costner in Modern West. Thanks, Kevin. Good to see you. See you tonight.
How the world is alive in the city, and baby, you look so pretty. Let